I heard my 8-year-old wife say over the phone, "He already left, baby. Come over quick." At that exact moment, I was hiding inside the closet of our guest room, holding my breath. Just 5 minutes earlier, she had kissed my cheek at the front door and said, "Have a great day at work, honey." Before I continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell because we have new stories every single day. Leave a like and tell us in the comments what city you're watching from. My name is Arthur Miller. I'm 52 years old and I'm an architect. For 24 years, I believed I had a rock-solid marriage with Vanessa, my 8-year-old wife. We got married in June 2000 when I was 28 and she was 24. We built a beautiful life together, an $850,000 three-story house in Evanston, a quiet suburb of Chicago. We had 2 kids, Evan 26 and Lily 23. I thought we shared a genuine love built on mutual trust. I run an architectural firm I founded 18 years ago. It's a successful business that pulls in between $250,000 and $300,000 a year. I was always the primary provider for our family. Vanessa never worked outside the home after Evan was born, dedicating herself completely to being a stay-at-home mom. I paid for absolutely everything. The $3,500 monthly mortgage, the utilities, the groceries, our annual family vacations, the cars, the kids' college tuitions. I never once complained. I thought I was simply fulfilling my role as a responsible husband and father. But in March 2024, exactly 4 months before the day that would shatter my entire reality, I started noticing subtle changes in Vanessa. Little things that I completely brushed off at first. She started going to the gym 3 times a week, something she hadn't done in all our years of marriage. She said she wanted to take better care of her health and feel good about herself. I found it a bit out of the blue, but ultimately positive. I even bought her $400 worth of new Lululemon workout gear, thinking I was being a supportive husband. Then came the phone habits. Vanessa had always left her iPhone on the kitchen island or the couch without a second thought. Suddenly, it was glued to her hand. She took it everywhere, the bathroom, the bedroom, the backyard. When I'd ask who was texting her after seeing her screen light up, she'd vaguely reply, "Nobody important, just the gym group chat," or claim a friend was asking for a recipe. Her tone was casual, but her eyes always avoided mine. The perfume was another red flag. For years, Vanessa wore the same classic floral Chanel scent I had bought her for our 10th anniversary. In April, she started wearing a new fragrance, something much heavier, sweeter, and more youthful. Whenever she put it on before her 1:00 a.m. gym sessions, the entire house would smell like it for hours. "Don't you like it?" she asked me once, twirling in front of the mirror. My personal trainer recommended it. He says it smells fresh and sporty. The personal trainer. Hunter Hayes. That name started popping up in her daily conversations with alarming frequency. Hunter says I should do more cardio. Hunter showed me a new leg routine. Hunter recommends this protein powder. At first, I chalked it up to normal professional admiration. Personal trainers aren't cheap. He charged $85 a session, and I was happily paying for 3 sessions a week without batting an eye. I wanted Vanessa to be happy. But there was something about the way she said his name. A certain softness, a familiarity that started twisting a knot of inexplicable anxiety in my gut. By June, things escalated. Vanessa began disappearing for long stretches of time. She'd say she was going to Whole Foods and return 4 hours later with just 2 small grocery bags. "I grabbed coffee with Alice," she'd say. But when I ran into Alice in town a few days later, she casually mentioned she hadn't seen Vanessa in months. The lies were glaringly obvious, but I kept giving her the benefit of the doubt. 24 years of marriage carries a lot of weight. I didn't want to believe what my gut was screaming at me. Then came Friday, the 12th of July, 2024. The day I decided to put an end to the doubts eating me alive. I woke up at 6:00 a.m. like I always do. Brewed some coffee, showered, and put on my gray work suit. Vanessa was still asleep. I walked over to the bed and stared at her for a long time. Her face was relaxed, still so beautiful after all these years. Was it really possible this woman was betraying me, or was I just going crazy with paranoia? I went down to the kitchen and packed my briefcase just like any normal day. But this time I added something different. My fully charged smartphone set to silent mode with the voice recorder app open and ready. I quietly went back upstairs to the 2nd floor and slipped into the guest bedroom, a room we hardly ever used. I opened the walk-in closet. It was spacious, about 6 feet wide. I shoved some old storage boxes aside to make room. I placed a small throw pillow on the floor and a completely empty plastic water bottle I had prepared the night before. I knew that if my suspicions were right, I might be waiting in there for hours. At exactly 7:30 a.m., I marched down the stairs, intentionally making my dress shoes click loudly against the hardwood. I walked into the master bedroom where Vanessa was now awake, sitting up in bed and scrolling through her phone. "Heading to the office, honey," I said, forcing my voice to sound as normal as possible. She looked up, gave me a bright smile, and got out of bed to kiss my cheek. "Have a great day at work, honey. I love you." Her words sounded so incredibly genuine that, for a split second, I second-guessed my entire plan. I walked out of the room, stomped loudly down the stairs, and opened and slammed the heavy oak front door. I even started my car in the driveway and let the engine run for about 30 seconds before shutting it off. Then, with my heart hammering violently against my ribs, I crept back into the house using the side door by the garage, a door we almost never used. I slipped off my shoes to avoid making a sound, padded silently up the stairs, and ducked into the guest room closet. I pulled the door shut, leaving only a fraction of an inch cracked open so I could breathe and listen. It was pitch black. I sat down on the pillow and hit record on my phone. Then began the longest, most agonizing wait of my entire life. 5 minutes later, I heard quick, hurried footsteps. It was Vanessa running up the stairs, followed by her clear, excited voice on the phone. "He already left, baby. Come over now. We have the house to ourselves until 2:00 p.m. My entire world collapsed in that single instant. Inside the closet, the darkness felt suffocating. I could hear my own heartbeat thumping in my ears like war drums. Vanessa's words kept echoing in my skull. "He already left, baby. Come over now. Baby." She was calling another man baby after 24 years of marriage. After building a family, a whole life together. I gripped my phone with trembling hands, making sure the red recording numbers were still ticking upward. 000217. Every documented second would be irrefutable proof of what I was about to witness. I took slow, deep breaths, trying to swallow down the nausea rising in my throat. I couldn't afford to make a single sound. I heard Vanessa rushing around the house. Her footsteps hurried down the stairs, then the sound of the shower turning on. The water ran for exactly 15 minutes. Then more footsteps lighter this time. She was probably barefoot on the hardwood. The heavy, sweet scent of her new perfume wafted all the way up to the second floor, seeping through the cracks of my hiding spot. That scent, which I had once just thought of as different, now felt like toxic fumes burning my nostrils. At 8:17 a.m., according to my phone's clock, the doorbell rang. My entire body went rigid. This was it. Vanessa sprinted down the stairs. The door opened, and then I heard a male voice, deep, young, confident. "Hey, gorgeous, I missed you." It was Hunter. I knew it instantly, because I had heard that voice before when I dropped by the gym to pay for her monthly sessions. He had been at the front desk chatting with a client, tall, muscular, dark hair slicked back with gel, maybe in his early 30s. And now, he was standing in my foyer. "I missed you too," Vanessa replied, using a voice I didn't even recognize. It was soft, flirtatious, dripping with a desire I hadn't heard directed at me in years. The unmistakable sound of a long, wet kiss echoed up the stairs, followed by soft giggling. "Get in here quick, I don't want the neighbors to see your car." The front door clicked shut. Their footsteps came up the stairs together. They walked right past the guest bedroom where I was hiding. Every muscle in my body froze. If they decided to come in here, if they opened this closet for any reason, it would all be over in an instant. But they walked right past and headed straight into the master bedroom. Our bedroom. The bed I had slept in for 24 years. "You sure he won't be back until 2?" Hunter asked. His voice was relaxed, casual, like this was just a regular Friday routine for him. "Positive," Vanessa replied confidently. "He always has client meetings on Friday mornings, and then he does lunch with his firm partners. He never gets home before 3, Hunter. We have all the time in the world, baby." The creak of the bed springs. More laughter. I squeezed my eyes shut in the dark, even though I couldn't see anything anyway. Silent tears began to stream down my cheeks. 42 minutes later, at 9:03 a.m., they finally went downstairs. I heard Hunter in the kitchen pulling open the stainless steel refrigerator. "Mind if I grab something to eat? I'm starving after that cardio," he chuckled. Vanessa laughed along with him. "Of course, whatever you want. Everything in this house is paid for by Arthur working himself to the bone, so enjoy." Those words sliced through me like a scalpel. She spoke about me with such deep contempt, as if I were just some foolish ATM funding her lifestyle while she slept with another man under my own roof. I listened to the clinking of silverware and plates. Hunter was eating the groceries I had literally bought at Trader Joe's 3 days ago. "When are you going to tell him the truth?" Hunter asked after a few minutes of chewing. There was a long pause. "It's not the right time yet," Vanessa finally said. "I need to make sure I have all my ducks in a row first." I've already transferred about $15,500 to my personal account over the last 4 months. He hasn't even noticed. He's so obsessed with his blueprints and his firm that he doesn't pay attention to anything else. My blood ran ice cold. $15,500. I frantically mentally reviewed our joint bank statements. Little amounts here and there that I had completely ignored because I trusted her implicitly. A $800 withdrawal one day, $150 another. Cash withdrawals that looked like normal household expenses but were actually funding her betrayal. "You're so smart," Hunter said, his voice full of admiration. "When you finally drop him, we won't have to hide anymore. We'll live the life we actually deserve." Vanessa sighed dreamily. "Yeah, baby, but I have to be careful. Arthur has a lot of money tied up in properties and the business. Illinois law can be tricky. If I play my cards wrong, I could walk away with less. I need to prepare." I kept recording every single word. My phone showed 004730 of captured audio. It was irrefutable evidence, but I needed more. I needed to hear everything to fully grasp the sheer depth of this betrayal before I made any moves. At 10:30 a.m., they went back upstairs to the bedroom. This time, I forced my mind to detach. I focused on anything else. I counted the thin slivers of light seeping through the closet door louvers. 12 thin lines of light in an abyss of darkness. I thought about Evan and Lily. My kids. Did they know anything about this? Was it possible their mother had hidden such a massive deception from them too? Or were they somehow complicit? At 11:45 a.m., I heard them back on the ground floor. Vanessa was cooking. The smell of an omelet wafted up the stairs. "You know what's hilarious?" Hunter said with his mouth full. "He literally pays for my training sessions with you, having no idea that after we sweat together at the gym, we end up sweating here." They both erupted into laughter like it was the funniest joke in the world. My legs were going completely numb. I had been crouched in this tiny space for over 4 hours. The empty plastic bottle I brought had already been used twice out of biological necessity. The throw pillow under me did nothing against the hardwood floor, but the physical pain was absolutely nothing compared to the emotional agony of listening to my wife plot my total destruction with such shameless glee. At 12:15 p.m., I finally heard the sentence I was waiting for. "I gotta get going," Hunter said. "I don't want to risk the mailman or a neighbor seeing me leave in broad daylight." Vanessa protested softly, but he insisted. "I'll see you Monday at the gym like always, and next Friday we'll do this again. Deal, deal, baby." Another long kiss. The front door opened and closed. Vanessa trotted upstairs, humming a pop song I didn't recognize. She went into the master bedroom. I heard the sound of the bed sheets being stripped, then the washing machine downstairs turning on. She was destroying the physical evidence, completely unaware that the most damning evidence of all was digitally secured on a smartphone less than 30 feet away from her. I looked at my screen. The recording was at 041208. 4 hours and 12 minutes of crystal clear audio. Complete conversations, confessions of embezzlement, plans to rob me, cruel mockery, all documented. I stopped the recording and saved the file with the exact date and time. This was going to be my ammunition when the time came to go to war. But I couldn't leave the closet just yet. I needed to wait to ensure Hunter wasn't coming back for a forgotten item and that Vanessa was sufficiently distracted. So I sat there in the dark, my marriage dead, my trust shattered, and the life I knew completely annihilated. I stayed in that closet until 12:40 p.m. 4 hours and 45 minutes locked in a claustrophobic box smelling of old cedar and dust. My legs were completely asleep. It felt like invisible needles were stabbing my calves every time I twitched. My lower back was screaming from the unnatural posture. But again, the physical pain was utterly insignificant compared to the gaping void expanding in my chest. I heard Vanessa go back downstairs. The TV flicked on some daytime cooking show she liked to watch in the afternoons. Her normal routine. As if nothing had happened. As if she hadn't just been in our marital bed with another man less than an hour ago. As if she hadn't been plotting to rob me blind and abandon me after 2.5 decades. I opened the closet door with excruciating caution. The midday sun pouring through the guest room window blinded me momentarily. It took several seconds for my eyes to adjust. I crawled out of my hiding spot with clumsy, silent movements. My knees popped audibly when I finally managed to stand up. I had severe cramps in both legs. I stood frozen by the closed bedroom door, listening intently for any sign she was coming upstairs. But the TV blared on downstairs. She was distracted. I took that moment to check my phone. Battery at 34%. The audio file was 478 megabytes. I immediately uploaded it to my secure cloud storage using cellular data, creating 3 backup copies on different servers. I could not risk losing this evidence under any circumstances. I tiptoed out of the guest room, ignoring the sharp pain in my numb feet. I crept down the stairs, hugging the wall to avoid the creaky center steps. I made it to the kitchen where I had left my briefcase that morning. I grabbed it silently, then slipped out the side door into the dark garage. I opened my car door, millimeter by millimeter got in, started the engine, and backed out of the driveway just as I would on any normal day. As I drove away, I looked at the dashboard clock, 1:25, 3 p.m. Vanessa wasn't expecting me until 3:00 p.m. I had over 2 hours to process the trauma I had just endured. I drove aimlessly through the Chicago suburbs. My hands were shaking so hard they vibrated against the steering wheel. At a red light, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyes were bloodshot and swollen. My tie was crooked. My hair was a mess. I looked like a man who had aged 10 years in a single morning. I ended up parking at a quiet nature preserve about 20 minutes from the house. I needed to think. I needed to decide what to do with this devastating arsenal of information I now possessed. The obvious emotional choice was to storm back home, play the recording over the Bluetooth speakers, demand an explanation, and throw her out onto the street. But something stopped me. A cold, calculating voice in my head that I had never heard before. If I confront her now with only one audio recording, she'll invent excuses. She'll say it was role play, that I misunderstood the context, that she was just venting. She'll cry, manipulate my emotions, play the 24 years together card. And worse, if I confront her without being fully legally prepared, she'll immediately start moving more money, hiding assets, and lawyering up. I didn't need to be a genius to see how that would end. For 24 years, I was the trusting husband who worked too hard and assumed the best of his family. But that version of Arthur Miller died in a dark closet this morning. The man sitting in this parked car was different, colder, more strategic. I am an architect. I know exactly how to build something solid, and by extension, I know exactly how to orchestrate a controlled demolition. I pulled out my phone and logged into our Chase bank accounts. I scrutinized the joint checking account. Withdrawals that previously looked normal now glared at me. An $850 cash withdrawal on March 15th labeled Target, groceries. Another $1,200 on April 3rd for clothing. $920 on April 28th for pharmacy. Household. I kept scrolling. $780 on May 12th. $1. $100 on June 4th. $890 on June 19th. $740 on July 8th. I mentally tallied every suspicious ATM withdrawal and odd transfer over the last 4 months. The total was exactly $15,520. Vanessa had boasted about $15,500 to Hunter. She had been systematically siphoning money from our family account, stealing right under my nose. I made good money, so I never micromanaged the budget. I trusted her blindly. That trust was my fatal flaw. Next, I opened my business banking app. I had $187 0 inches fixed-term investments, $94 0 inches the firm's operating account, and $43 0 inches a personal emergency savings account. Vanessa didn't even know existed. Adding up the equity of our 2 properties, my equity in the architecture firm, our cars, and joint investment accounts, my total net worth hovered around $2.2 million. Illinois is an equitable distribution state. That meant in a standard divorce, the judge would divide the marital assets fairly, which usually ends up close to 50/50 for a long-term marriage where one spouse stayed home. She would legally be entitled to over $1 million. Money she would take straight to Hunter to fund their new life together, leaving me emotionally and financially gutted. Except now I had proof of adultery, and more importantly, proof of the dissipation of marital assets. Adultery alone doesn't sway a judge much in modern U.S. divorce courts, but stealing marital funds to fund an affair or stash in a secret account, judges despise that. If I could definitively prove she was embezzling from the marriage, it would drastically alter the division of assets. But I needed more than one recording and a few bank statements. I needed an ironclad paper trail, photographs of Hunter coming and going, logs of their communication, a completely airtight investigation that left zero room for doubt. And I had to do it all in total silence, smiling at her every day until I was fully armed. I Googled private investigators in the Chicago area. I found an agency called Peterson Investigations in the Loop with stellar reviews. I dialed the number. A gruff, professional voice answered, "Peterson Investigations. Gary speaking." I explained my situation concisely. Gary Peterson listened without interrupting once. When I finished, there was a brief silence. "Mr. Miller, this is a lot more common than you'd think. I can definitely help you. But you need to understand one thing. Once you open this box, you can't close it. Are you absolutely sure you want to know everything? I looked out the car window at the empty park. An older man was tossing bread to ducks. A young couple jogged by holding hands and laughing. Normal life was carrying on all around me while my entire universe had burned to ash. I am completely sure, I replied, my voice possessing a firmness that surprised even me. I want to know absolutely everything. Every lie, every meetup, every stolen dollar. Everything. Gary explained his retainer was $3,500 for 2 weeks of intensive surveillance, which included photo, video evidence, and a detailed daily log. I paid the retainer over the phone with my secret emergency card. We agreed to meet in his office that coming Monday. I hung up the phone and took a deep breath. The next step was the hardest part. I had to go home, walk through that door, and pretend absolutely nothing was wrong. I had to smile at the woman who was trying to destroy me while secretly building the case that would destroy her. I drove home, pulling into the driveway at exactly 3:17 p.m. I parked in the garage and walked through the front door. "I'm home," I called out, with fake enthusiasm. Vanessa emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She was wearing a light blue sundress I had never seen before. Her makeup was flawless. She looked stunning. She looked like a traitor. "Hey, honey, how was your day?" she asked, walking up and beaming at me. I looked directly into her eyes, searching for a microscopic trace of guilt, of shame, of humanity. I found nothing, just the same perfect mask she had been wearing for God knows how long. "Very productive," I replied, leaning in to kiss her cheek. It was a very revealing day. On Monday, July 15th at 9:00 a.m., I met with Gary Peterson at his office downtown. He was 58 with slicked back gray hair, a sharp dark suit, and the tired eyes of a man who had seen too many stories exactly like mine. His desk was covered in file folders, and his dual monitor setup showed various camera feeds. "Mr. Miller, before we start, I need you to sign these NDAs," he said, sliding a folder toward me. "Everything we find stays between you and me until you're ready to take it to your lawyer. I also need you to understand my job is strictly documenting facts, not judging them." I signed without reading the fine print. I just wanted answers. I handed him a recent photo of Vanessa from our vacation to Maui last year. I also gave him photos of Hunter I had easily scraped from the FitLife Gym's Instagram page. Gary studied them. "All right, we start surveillance this Wednesday. I need her weekly scheduled gym days, typical errands, places she frequents. The more data I have, the less time we waste." For the next 14 days, I lived a schizophrenic double life. Every morning I woke up next to Vanessa, ate breakfast with her, and made mundane small talk about the weather or the news. She'd ask about my architecture projects, and I'd invent fake stressful deadlines just to watch her pretend to care. Every micro-expression on her face disgusted me. On the evenings, when Evan and Lily came over for family dinners, we played the role of the perfect affluent suburban family. But internally, every interaction was a calculated performance. Every time she kissed my cheek, I had to suppress a physical gag reflex. Every time she said "I love you," it sounded like glass shattering in my ears. At night, I slept facing the wall, claiming I had pulled a back muscle at work. I couldn't bear to touch her. The sheer thought of her hands, the same hands that had been all over Hunter touching my skin, made my stomach churn. Every evening, Gary sent me encrypted reports. On Wednesday, July 17th, he documented their first meetup. Vanessa left the house at 10:30 a.m. in tight Lululemon leggings. She drove to FitLife and walked in at 10:52 a.m. Hunter was waiting at the front desk. They hugged a hug that lingered far too long to be professional. They trained for an hour. Gary attached 16 photos, showing them at various machines, always standing too close. Hunter's hands constantly lingering on her waist or hips. At 12:15 p.m. they left the gym. But instead of going home, Vanessa followed Hunter's Jeep to an apartment complex in Wicker Park. Photos showed them walking into the building together. Gary waited in his car. 2 hours and 40 minutes later, they emerged. In one telephoto shot taken from across the street, Hunter was clearly buckling his belt while Vanessa was aggressively adjusting her messy hair. You didn't need to be a detective to know what just happened. On Friday, July 19th, exactly 1 week after my closet discovery, Vanessa repeated her routine. I left the house at 7:30 a.m. Gary confirmed Hunter arrived at our house at 8:10 a.m. This time, Gary had discreetly installed a motion-activated trail cam in a tree across from my driveway. The video footage showed Hunter walking up to my front door and unlocking it with his own key. Vanessa had given him a key to my home. My sanctuary had been invaded by this parasite with total impunity. Over those 2 weeks, Gary documented 14 encounters. 3 times in my own house on Friday mornings, 6 times at Hunter's Wicker Park apartment after gym sessions, twice at a cheap boutique hotel near Union Station where they booked day rates, once in his Jeep parked in a secluded corner of Lincoln Park, and 2 romantic lunches at upscale restaurants where they openly held hands and kissed, clearly not caring who saw them. The photos were soul-crushing. Hands intertwined over a plate of pasta, Hunter kissing her neck while she laughed with her eyes closed. They looked like a normal couple with nothing to hide. But on Thursday, July 25th, I received the nuclear payload. Gary had managed to record a conversation between Vanessa and Hunter at the gym's juice bar, using a directional parabolic microphone from a table 30 feet away. The audio was pristine. "Vanessa, I almost have everything set up. I've been funneling money out slowly so he doesn't catch on. Once I hit $30 0 inches my solo account, that'll be enough to cover the divorce lawyer retainer and our first few months of rent." "Hunter, what about your kids? Do they suspect anything?" There was a pause. "Vanessa, Evan, and Lily have known for 2 months. I sat them down and told them. At first, Lily was upset, but I explained to her that her father is a workaholic who never actually pays attention to me. Evan got it right away. They're both going to support me when the time comes." Those words hit me with the force of a freight train. Worse than any photo. Worse than the cheating. My kids knew. For 2 months, my children had come over for dinner, hugged me, called me Dad, and looked me dead in the eye, knowing the entire time that their mother was destroying our family. Not only did they know they had picked a side, they didn't warn me. They didn't protect me. They simply bought Vanessa's manufactured narrative, where I was the negligent villain, and decided I deserved to be made a fool of. On Friday, July 26th, I decided to verify this myself. I invited Evan to lunch at a quiet steakhouse near his digital marketing job downtown. He showed up at 1:00 p.m. wearing a casual button-down and khakis. "Hey, Dad. Everything okay? It's rare for you to drag me out for lunch during the week," he said, sitting down with a curious look. We ordered. We made small talk about his job for a bit. Then, as the waiter dropped off our steaks, I casually dropped the bait. "How do you think your mom is doing lately?" Evan chewed his steak slowly before answering. "Good, I guess. Why do you ask?" There was a subtle defensiveness in his tone that confirmed my worst fears. "She just seems happier lately," I pushed. "More dressed up. Going out more." Evan looked down at his plate. "People change, Dad. Mom is just in a phase where she wants to focus on herself. Nothing wrong with that." The way he immediately threw up a protective shield for her told me everything. He knew, and he was actively covering her tracks. "Is there something I should know, Evan?" I asked, looking him dead in the eye. "My 6-year-old son. The boy I carried on my shoulders at Wrigley Field. The kid whose entire college tuition I paid for out of pocket held my gaze for 3 seconds before breaking it. "I don't know what you're talking about, Dad. Everything is normal." He lied to my face with the exact same sociopathic ease as his mother. That night, I called Lily. She lived in an apartment near DePaul University with roommates. "Hey, Daddy, what's wrong? You sound weird," she said, her voice laced with genuine concern. For a second, my resolve wavered. Lily had always been my little girl. But I had to know. "I need to ask you something important, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Has your mother told you anything about her personal life lately? Something I should be aware of?" There was a long silence on the line. Too long. "Daddy, if Mom has something to tell you, she needs to be the one to do it. I can't get in the middle of your guys' marriage." Her non-answer was the ultimate confirmation. My 3-year-old daughter had decided that keeping her mother's dirty secret was more important than her loyalty to her father. "I understand," I said, my voice completely hollow. "Sleep well, Lily." I hung up before she could say another word. I sat in my home office that night, surrounded by the dossier, 247 photographs, 8 hours of video footage, audio recordings, highlighted bank statements, a 3-4-page professional PI report detailing every lie and every stolen dollar, and now the absolute confirmation that my own children were complicit in my humiliation. Vanessa's betrayal was a knife in the back, but Evan and Lily's betrayal was a bullet to the chest. It destroyed the very core of who I thought I was as a father. On Saturday, July 27th, I booked a private room at an upscale restaurant downtown and told Evan and Lily I needed to have a serious family meeting. They both arrived right on time at 8:30 p.m. I immediately noticed the nervous look they exchanged when they saw me sitting alone at the large table with no Vanessa in sight. They knew something was wrong. "Where's Mom?" Lily asked, draping her jacket over her chair. She was wearing a green dress I had bought her for her 22nd birthday. Evan sat down without a word, but his body language was rigid, defensive, like an animal bracing for impact. Your mother doesn't know about this dinner, I said, keeping my voice perfectly level, and I prefer to keep it that way for now. I ordered food for us, but before it gets here, I need to show you both something. I pulled my iPad out of my briefcase. I opened a digital folder labeled July 2024. Evan leaned forward, squinting. Dad, what is this? I didn't answer. I just swiped to the first photo. It was Vanessa and Hunter making out aggressively outside the Wicker Park apartment. The telephoto lens made the image crystal clear, his hands gripping her waist, her eyes closed in obvious ecstasy. All the color instantly drained from Lily's face. Dad, she started, but her voice cracked and died. Evan, however, hardened his jaw. Did you spy on her? You hired a private investigator to follow Mom. He sounded indignantly offended, as if I was the villain for uncovering the truth rather than remaining a happily ignorant ATM. Answer me with absolute honesty, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. How long have you two known that your mother was sleeping with another man? The silence in the room was deafening. Lily stared at her hands, trembling. Evan held my gaze for 5 agonizing seconds before letting out a harsh sigh and leaning back in his chair. 2 months, Evan finally admitted. Mom told us around Memorial Day. She said she had fallen in love with someone else, but that she needed time to figure out the logistics before she dropped the bomb on you. Every word out of his mouth was like battery acid. And neither of you thought that maybe your father deserved to know that I had a right to the truth. Lily looked up, tears brimming in her eyes. Dad, you don't understand. Mom has been so lonely for years while you just work 24/7. She needed attention. She needed someone who actually saw her. She was regurgitating Vanessa's manipulative script verbatim. The fiction where I was the negligent monster who deserved to be cheated on because I worked hard to provide them an upper-class life. So, according to your logic, I said, leaning forward, I deserved this. I deserved to have my wife bring her lover into my own bed. I deserved to have her systematically embezzle money from my bank accounts for months. I deserved to have my own children look me in the eye and lie to me to protect the person destroying me. I swiped through the photos on the iPad, picture after picture, irrefutable proof. Evan slammed his hand on the table. Dad, I get that you're hurt, but relationships are complicated. You and Mom have been roommates for years. She just went out and found what she wasn't getting at home. The sheer audacity he had to justify this left me momentarily speechless. This was my son, the boy I taught how to drive, the boy whose rent I was currently subsidizing. Do you guys know how much money I've handed to both of you over the last 2 years? I asked, pivoting the conversation abruptly. They both looked confused by the sudden change in topic. Evan, I transfer $1,500 into your account every single month to help with your downtown rent since you graduated. That's $42,000 over the last 28 months. Lily, I pay your $1,200 rent plus your $25,000 annual DePaul tuition out of pocket. In total, I've spent over $85,000 on your college life so far. I let the numbers hang in the air. That's not including the cars I bought you, the iPhones, the family trips to Hawaii, the health insurance. A conservative estimate says I've invested about $150,000 purely into your adult lifestyles in the last few years alone. And when your mother decided to blow up this family, when you had to make a choice between basic loyalty to your father or protecting her lies, you chose her. Lily started openly sobbing. That's not fair, Dad. You're making it sound transactional. We didn't want to hurt you. We just thought it was Mom's mess to clean up. Her tears didn't move me. Not anymore. Something fundamental inside my soul had snapped. My capacity to be emotionally manipulated by them was gone. Here is what's going to happen, I said with a glacial coldness that shocked even me. Starting August 1st, which is in 4 days, both of you are completely cut off. Not a single cent more. Evan, your $1,500 monthly transfer is canceled. Lily, your tuition and rent payments are canceled. Furthermore, I am calling my estate lawyer on Monday. You are both being completely removed from my will. When I die, which I hope isn't for a very long time, you will receive absolutely nothing from my estate. The utter shock on their faces was palpable. Evan lurched forward. Dad, are you insane? You can't punish us because Mom made a mistake. A mistake, I repeated the word dryly. He called months of premeditated adultery, fraud, and embezzlement a mistake. I'm not punishing you, I corrected him. I am simply treating you like the independent adults you claim to be. Adults who made a conscious decision about where their loyalty lies. You chose your mother's team. Fantastic. Let Hunter and your mother fund your lifestyles from now on. Lily shook her head frantically. Daddy, please, no, I can't pay for DePaul on my own. I only work part-time as a waitress. I barely make $1,000 a month. I'll be evicted. Her words, which normally would have broken my heart, only cemented my resolve. Then I suppose you'll have to make some tough adult decisions. Take out student loans, pick up more shifts, or go ask your mother. The mention of Hunter made Evan grit his teeth. So you're just going to be a vindictive prick. Is that who you really are, Dad? I leaned back, observing him with a calmness I didn't actually feel. I'm not vindictive, Evan. I am just... For 26 years, I gave you everything you needed without asking for anything in return except basic respect and honesty. When the ultimate test of loyalty came, you failed. Spectacularly. The waiter arrived with our steaks, placing the expensive cuts of meat in front of us. None of us touched our silverware. The heavy silence was suffocating. Finally, Lily spoke, her voice trembling. Is there anything we can do to fix this? To make you change your mind? I looked at her. In her green eyes that looked exactly like Vanessa's, I searched for a shred of genuine remorse for the emotional damage they caused me. I found none. I only saw sheer panic about their financial ruin. No, I replied with absolute finality. This is permanent. You will build your own lives without my money. You're going to learn what it actually means to earn $1. And maybe one day, though I seriously doubt it, you'll understand the value of family loyalty. I stood up from the table, tossing $200 bills onto the tablecloth to cover the untouched food. You guys can stay and eat. I'm done. I walked out of the restaurant without looking back. Behind me, I heard Lily sobbing loudly and Evan cursing under his breath. Neither of them chased after me. Neither of them offered a genuine apology for the betrayal. They only regretted the consequences. That was the crucial difference that made my decision rock solid. In the parking garage, I sat in my car for 15 minutes before starting the engine. I had lost my wife. I had lost my kids. In the span of 2 weeks, my entire family had disintegrated, revealing it was built on rotten wood. But strangely, sitting there in the dark, I didn't feel weak. I felt clarity. For the first time in months, I knew exactly what my next target was. On Monday, July 29th, I requested an urgent meeting with a powerhouse family law attorney Gary Peterson had highly recommended. His name was Ed Gallagher, a 61-year-old legal shark with 30 years of experience in high net worth, high conflict divorces. His office was in a sleek high-rise in the Loop overlooking Lake Michigan. Ed had neat gray hair, wire-rimmed glasses, and the no-nonsense demeanor of a man who destroyed people for a living. Mr. Miller, Gary gave me a brief rundown on the phone, but I need you to walk me through everything. Don't leave out a single detail, no matter how embarrassing, Ed said, pulling out a legal pad. For 90 minutes, I laid it all out. The closet, the audio recording, the 14 dates the PI caught, the $15, $500, siphoned from the joint checking account, the complicity of my children. Ed took meticulous notes occasionally, stopping me to ask for specific dates or dollar amounts. When I finished, Ed set his pen down and steepled his fingers. Arthur, I'm truly sorry you're going through this. I've seen 1,000 divorces, and the level of deception here is profound. Now let's talk strategy. He opened a fresh folder. Illinois is a no-fault divorce state, meaning the adultery itself won't mathematically change the division of the house or the retirement accounts. However, and this is a big however, the $15, $500 she funneled into a secret account constitutes the dissipation of marital assets. Because she spent marital funds on an affair, the judge will absolutely factor that in and award you a disproportionately larger share of the estate to make you whole. That was music to my ears. But there's something else we need to check, Ed continued, narrowing his eyes. During your marriage, did you ever grant her a power of attorney? Even temporarily? I racked my brain. Then a memory from years ago clicked into place. Yes, I said slowly. Back in 2016. I had to go to an architecture summit in Seattle for 2 weeks. We were in the middle of refinancing our condo in Clearwater, Florida, and I wasn't going to be in town to sign the closing documents. I gave her a limited power of attorney so she could sign on my behalf. Ed's expression darkened immediately. Did you ever formally revoke that POA after the refinance was done? My stomach dropped. No. I assumed it expired after the transaction. I completely forgot about it. Ed closed his eyes and sighed heavily. Arthur, I need you to authorize me to run a comprehensive forensic check on your credit and every legal transaction tied to your Social Security number over the last 5 years. If she kept that POA and used it recently without your knowledge, we are dealing with massive felony fraud. The next 4 days were a blur of forensic accounting. Ed's team pulled property records, bank histories, and credit reports. On Friday, August 2nd, at 4:30 p.m., my phone rang. It was Ed. His voice was grim. "Arthur, get down to my office immediately. We found the mother lode. I made it downtown in 20 minutes." Ed had 3 official documents spread across his mahogany desk. "Brace yourself, because this is going to make your blood boil," he warned. "In March 2024, your wife took that stale 2016 POA into a Chase branch. She used it to take out a $30,000 personal signature loan in your name. The funds were deposited directly into a solo account you don't have access to. She set up the $550 monthly autopay to come out of your business's operating account, burying it in your firm's overhead expenses so you wouldn't notice." I felt like I had been punched in the throat. "But that's identity theft. That's a felony." Ed nodded grimly. "Absolutely. But wait, it gets worse. In May 2024, she used the POA again at the Illinois DMV. She transferred the title of your BMW, the one you bought in 2021 valued at around $60,000 solely into her name. The car you drive every day isn't legally yours anymore. The rage that washed over me was entirely different from the heartbreak I felt in the closet. This wasn't emotional betrayal. This was a calculated criminal assassination of my finances. I did the math in my head. $30,000, fraudulent loan. $60,000, stolen vehicle. $15,500, embezzled cash. Total, $105,500. My wife had stolen over 6 figures from me using my trust and a forgotten piece of paper. "What are my options, Ed?" I asked, my voice trembling with adrenaline. Ed leaned forward, his eyes locked onto mine. "You have 2 paths. Path 1. We file a high-conflict divorce, cite extreme dissipation of assets, and demand full restitution in the civil settlement. Path 2. We file the civil divorce, and we concurrently file a police report with the Financial Crimes Unit for felony forgery, wire fraud, and grand theft. I highly recommend taking both paths simultaneously." "If we go to the police, what happens to her?" I asked. Ed didn't blink. "Given the dollar amount exceeds $100,000, it's a Class 1 felony in Illinois. If convicted, she is looking at mandatory restitution and potentially 4 to 15 years in state prison. Now, as a first-time nonviolent offender, a plea deal for heavy probation is likely, but she will be a convicted felon for the rest of her life." Prison. The word hung heavy in the air. Vanessa, my wife of 24 years, the mother of my children, could go to prison. A tiny fraction of me, the ghost of the man who loved her, felt a twinge of pity. But that ghost was quickly violently smothered by the reality of the monster she actually was. File everything I said with lethal conviction. I want every single cent back. I want her to face the maximum legal consequences. I want to utterly destroy her." Ed nodded sharply. "Sign these authorizations. The divorce will take about 18 months. The criminal case might take longer. But with the paper trail we have, we hold every single card." I signed the papers. As the ink dried, a bizarre sensation washed over me: liberation. For weeks I had carried the suffocating weight of this secret. I had smiled through the pain. But now the counteroffensive had officially begun. "When do we confront her?" I asked. "Here in my office." "Tomorrow at 11:00 a.m.? Ed replied. "I'll have my paralegal draft a fake email from your accountant demanding you both come in to sign an urgent tax audit document. When she walks in, I will drop the hammer. It's crucial we do this in a controlled environment. Saturday, August 3rd, 11:00 a.m. The conference room at Ed's firm was intimidating. A massive oak table, leather chairs, and a panoramic view of the Chicago skyline. In the center of the table sat a thick navy blue binder containing 89 pages of meticulously organized evidence. The PI photos, the bank statements, the forged loan documents, the DMV title transfer, and a flash drive containing the audio files. Vanessa arrived at exactly 11:05 a.m. She walked in wearing an elegant beige trench coat and designer heels. Her hair was perfectly blown out. She looked confident, mildly annoyed at having her Saturday interrupted by tax issues. She had no idea she was walking into her own execution. When the receptionist escorted her into the conference room and she saw me sitting next to Ed, a man who was very clearly not our accountant, her face registered total confusion. "Arthur, what is this? Your text said we had an IRS issue. Who is this?" she demanded, stopping in the doorway. Ed stood up, buttoning his suit jacket. "Mrs. Miller, please have a seat. I am Edward Gallagher, your husband's divorce attorney." We've called you here today to discuss some severe legal and financial irregularities we've uncovered. Vanessa slowly sat down, her eyes darting frantically between Ed and me. Irregularities. Divorce attorney. Arthur. What the hell is going on? I finally spoke, my voice colder than ice. We're talking about Hunter Hayes. We're talking about the 14 times you slept with him in the last 2 weeks. We're talking about the $105,500 you stole from me, using a fraudulent power of attorney. Ed didn't give her a second to breathe. He flipped open the binder and slid the first photograph across the table. It was the telephoto shot of her and Hunter making out in Wicker Park, time-stamped the 17th of July, 2024, 12:15 p.m. Vanessa stared at the photo. Her hand flew to cover her mouth. You had me followed. You're spying on me. The classic cheater's pivot attack the victim for discovering the crime. I didn't spy on you, I replied evenly. I hired a professional after I heard it with my own ears. On Friday, July 12th, I didn't go to work. I hid in the guest room closet. I heard you call him. I listened to him come into my house, eat my food, and sleep with my wife in my bed. I sat in that closet for nearly 5 hours and recorded every single word you two said. I slid my iPhone across the table. The screen displayed the audio file. Length 041208. Vanessa began shaking her head rapidly. No, this isn't happening. Ed methodically laid out the rest of the paperwork. Here are the bank statements, showing $15,500 embezzled. Here is the $30,000 fraudulent loan you took out using a voided 2016 POA. And here is the forged DMV title transfer for the BMW. I had permission to use that POA. Vanessa stammered, her voice shrill with panic. Arthur gave it to me. It's legal. Ed smiled a terrifying, predatory smile. A limited POA issued in 2016 for a Florida real estate transaction does not grant you the right to take out personal loans and steal vehicles 8 years later. That is felony fraud, identity theft, and grand larceny under Illinois law. Vanessa turned to me, tears streaming down her face. The emotional manipulation was starting. Arthur, please, yes, I made mistakes. Yes, I got involved with Hunter. But you don't understand how lonely I've been. You work 80-hour weeks. I became a piece of furniture to you. I just wanted to feel alive again. Her words bounced harmlessly off the armor I had built. So it's my fault, I asked. My fault for working 80 hours a week to pay for the $850,000 house you live in, the cars you drive, the country club memberships, and the fact that you haven't had to work a job in 24 years? That justifies bringing another man into my bed, stealing $100,000, and brainwashing my own children to cover for you. That last part hit her hard. The kids. What do Evan and Lily have to do with this? I pulled out my phone and hit play on the audio clip from the gym juice bar. Vanessa's own voice echoed through the boardroom. Evan and Lily have known for 2 months. I explained to her that her father is a workaholic. They're both going to support me. Vanessa squeezed her eyes shut, sobbing into her hands. She was completely trapped. Ed delivered the final blow. Mrs. Miller, we have filed for a high-conflict divorce. We are petitioning the court for an extreme disproportionate share of the marital assets due to your blatant dissipation of funds. Furthermore, my client has filed a formal police report for the financial fraud. The Cook County State's Attorney is reviewing the evidence. You are looking at a Class 1 felony charge carrying potential prison time. The word prison shattered her entirely. Prison? You can't be serious, Arthur, please. We're family. 24 years, I'll break it off with Hunter. I'll pay the money back. Let's go to counseling. Please don't destroy my life. She was begging now completely. Stripped of her dignity, I stood up, feeling decades of exhaustion in my bones. Vanessa, you destroyed your own life with every choice you made. Every time you called him. Every time you forged my signature. Every time you lied to my face. I'm just documenting the consequences. Ed slid a thick manila envelope across the table. You have just been formally served. I highly suggest you retain criminal defense counsel immediately. I walked out of the conference room, leaving my wife of 24 years weeping alone at the massive oak table. In the hallway, I didn't feel satisfaction or joy. I just felt a profound emptiness where my family used to be. But the tumor had been excised. Now I just had to survive the chemo. The war got ugly fast. On Monday, August 5th, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. It was a massive text from Hunter. I'm Hunter. What you're doing to Vanessa is psychotic. She's destroyed. You can't ruin her life just because she found real love. Be a man and accept your marriage has been dead for years. The sheer audacity of this broke 3-0. Something gym rat trying to lecture me on masculinity was astounding. Ed had warned me this might happen. I didn't reply. I took a screenshot and waited. 20 minutes later, don't ignore me. If you don't drop the criminal charges, you're gonna regret it. If you really loved her, you'd let her be happy. Another screenshot. He was digging his own grave. An hour later, he left a rambling, aggressive voicemail, calling me a coward and threatening to come to my firm and make a scene. That crossed a legal line. I sent the screenshots and the audio file straight to Ed. Add extortion and harassment to the pile, Ed texted back immediately. Then I went online and found the corporate email for FitLife Chicago's HR department. I drafted a hyper-professional email outlining that one of their trainers, Hunter Hayes, had engaged in a predatory sexual relationship with a married client, used paid training sessions as a cover for the affair, and was now actively harassing the client's husband with threats of violence. I attached the audio file of Hunter threatening me and 5 heavily redacted PI photos showing them kissing in FitLife gear outside the gym. 3 days later, I got a polite email from FitLife's regional manager stating that their company maintains a strict zero-tolerance code of ethics, and that Mr. Hayes' employment had been terminated effective immediately. Hunter had lost his job and his primary source of income, all as a direct result of his own arrogance. Vanessa called me hysterically the next day. "Hunter got fired because of you. He can't pay his rent. Are you happy now? You're a monster." I didn't fire him, Vanessa. His employer fired him for being wildly unethical. And frankly, his financial problems stopped being my concern the day you invited him into my bed. I hung up and blocked her number permanently. The legal battles consumed the next 18 months. The Cook County Family Court judge, a no-nonsense woman named Judge Delgado, saw right through Vanessa's high-priced defense attorney. During the property division hearing in October, Vanessa's lawyer tried to argue for a 50-over-50 split of the $2.2 million estate. Judge Delgado cut her off mid-sentence. "Counselor, your client didn't just have an affair. She systematically forged legal documents to steal over $100,000 from the marital estate to fund her exit strategy. That is egregious dissipation." The final divorce decree in January 2025 was a slaughter. I was awarded 82% of the total marital assets. I kept the architecture firm entirely. The Evanston house was ordered to be sold, and I took 82% of the equity. The Florida condo was sold, same split. Vanessa was awarded $396,000 from her 18% share. However, the judge ordered that the $105,500 she stole had to be paid back to me immediately out of her cut. She walked away with just $290,500. In the current economy, with no job history for 2 decades, that money would evaporate in a few years. Simultaneously, the criminal case was progressing. Facing an airtight case of wire fraud and forgery, Vanessa took a plea deal to avoid state prison. She pled guilty to a lesser felony charge. She received 3 years of heavy supervised probation and a permanent felony record. Her credit was destroyed. It is now October 2025, 1 year and 3 months since that morning in the closet. My life is completely unrecognizable but incredibly peaceful. I sold the massive empty Evanston house and bought a gorgeous modern 2-bedroom condo in Lincoln Park, overlooking the skyline. My architecture firm had its best year ever, clearing over $4.7 million in gross revenue on a massive new commercial contract. I've been in weekly therapy with Dr. Emily Carter, who helped me process the trauma of the betrayal without letting it turn me into a bitter cynic. I recently started dating Patty, a 8-year-old commercial real estate broker. We take things slow. She knows my whole story. We enjoy dinners, art galleries, and long, honest conversations. Gary Peterson, the PI, sent me a follow-up report a few months ago just to tie up loose ends. Vanessa is living in a cramped $1,200 a month apartment in Albany Park. Because of her felony record, no corporate office would hire her. She works as a receptionist at a sketchy dental clinic, making $15 an hour. After rent and groceries, she has virtually nothing left. The luxury life she took for granted for 24 years is a distant memory. She takes the CTA bus because she had to surrender the BMW back to me. Hunter is gone. He dumped Vanessa in December 2024. Once the thrill of the illicit affair wore off and they were just 2 broke people facing criminal charges and unemployment, the true love evaporated instantly. He moved to Miami, working at a cheap budget gym. Evan, my 6-year-old son, had to move in with his mother in Albany Park because he couldn't afford his downtown rent without my $1,500 subsidy. He works at a miserable customer service call center, buried in his own bills. Lily, my 3, Year-old daughter had to drop out of DePaul University because she couldn't secure enough student loans to cover the $25,000 tuition. She works 55 hours a week waiting tables at 2 different restaurants in Wicker Park, sharing a tiny apartment with 3 roommates. She looks exhausted, stressed, and is learning the brutal reality of survival without her father's safety net. They try to call me sometimes. Lily has left crying voicemails. Evan has sent long emails. Vanessa tries from blocked numbers. I ignore all of it. I haven't spoken to any of them in 2 years. Some people say I'm too harsh on my kids, that I should forgive them. But I've learned that forgiveness doesn't mean granting them access to my life again. They chose their side. They chose to protect the lies. My peace requires absolute distance from the people who proved they could watch me be destroyed and do nothing. I sip my black coffee on my balcony watching the sun rise over Lake Michigan. My circle is small now. Patty Ed, my therapist, a few close friends, but it is authentic. No one here is lying to me. No one is stealing from me. I demolished a rotten building, and on the empty lot, I built a foundation of absolute truth. And that is worth everything. If you liked this story, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching.